Hello, and welcome to another episode of Defining Your Brand podcast. Today on the podcast, I have Dr. Stacy C Grant, and this woman is amazing. I met her a year ago in Dubai on the other side of the world, and I was instantly just impressed by this woman and her drive and all the things that she works on and the way she treats people and loves on people. This woman works with faith-based entrepreneurs, and every year she puts on a massive weekend where she helps other entrepreneurs grow in their journey towards their business and their money mindset, and just expanding everything that they're working on. So I think this woman's amazing. I think you're going to think this woman's amazing. So I can't wait for you to hear from Dr. Stacy. Well, thank you. I appreciate you doing this for me and with me. I love talking to you again. It's been a long time. So for those who are going to watch this or listen to this and don't know you, I'd love for you to kind of tell us a little bit about what you do.
Sure. Well, hello, Sunshines. I'm so glad that you are here tuned in to the one and only John Harder podcast because he is thebomb.com. So my stock just went up just being here today and telling you a little bit about who I am, Dr. Stacy C Grant, Chief Faithpreneur. And no, it's not North Carolina Grant. It's just STACIE Grant. And I just had to be original when I got married. Didn't want to hyphenate and didn't want to drop my maiden name. So Dr. Stacy C Grant is the Chief Faithpreneur. What is a faithpreneur? Faith-based entrepreneur with a fidelity to God in organizing, managing, and operating your business, learning how to also add another stream of income to your personal economy if you're a faithpreneur who's still working a corporate 9-to-5 or nonprofit job. And our goal is to help our community of faithpreneurs leverage relationships, resources, and revenue to create sustainable and profitable legacies by being cash flow positive. So I'm able to do that through a variety of online platforms of learning through Destiny Designers University, as well as keynoting and workshops that allow me to engage and serve this community as we're on a mission to create 1 million cash flow positive faithpreneurs. Now, the other verticals of my business include CNG Enterprises Unlimited, which is a minority woman-owned business enterprise that is focused on community engagement, media facilitation, and programming in the space of government contracts. So I am excited about the work that I do there. My most recent position is with the JFK, which is the JFK International Airport, is having a $13 billion renovation. And I and my company have been named as the facilitators for the Community Advisory Council that is working with the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, our elected officials, our community-based organizations, to really help ensure that there is legacy programming, funding, and projects as a result of this redevelopment at JFK. And then I also produce 5 shows a week. So I have the producer hat on. Clearly, if you haven't figured out by now, you're listening to a Jamaican. We have plenty jobs. So I get to just basically do 3 things, John, and that's lead, teach, and inspire. And I'm blessed to have multiple verticals in the various businesses that I run, own, operate, and joint venture with to help reach the masses and use what God has given me to be a blessing on this planet.
Well, it's too bad you don't have something to do. I mean,
I'm such a slacker.
Well, I want to know basically how, you're this kind of epic businesswoman from when I've known you, which has been over the last year. And, but I would love to kind of talk a little bit about your journey in the beginning. That's a big leap to where you are now, I'm sure, from where you started. And I think that a lot of us entrepreneurs that look at people that are in your kind of situation think that seems so unattainable or so far away, or, how do you get to that place? So I'd love for you to kind of lead us through the journey, at least where you started kind of getting into this.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. I share a lot about that journey in my book, Action Despite the Distractions, 7 Life Lessons on How to Thrive and Live Your Destiny Now. It didn't start today. It's been a journey. And I share those lessons. And one of them, John, it's not about being perfect. It's about getting started so you have something to perfect. That's my life lesson number 2. Number 1 is faith is an action word, obviously. If I'm a chief faithpreneur, it's going to start with my faith, but my journey has been a series of unfortunate circumstances that I was able to turn lemons into lemonade. How about that? So everybody that you watch growing in the space of entrepreneurship didn't get to where they are overnight. It's been a journey. It's been a process. It's been growth. I call it expensive learning curves. I don't use the word mistakes because everything is intentional in your life for a reason. We might not like the lessons we learn. They don't feel pretty when we're going through the rough spots, but everything is working and conspiring together to create who you are in this moment. So pre this moment, I was just somebody who knew that working for somebody else, John, that wasn't going to work out for a long time because I was giving my skills and my talents and I didn't feel appreciated. And I didn't feel like they could put a price tag on what I had to offer. I told my mother years ago, I think after my undergrad graduation, I'm not going to last working for somebody for too long. I didn't really know that I was going to be an entrepreneur, but I just knew that I don't know if this is for me. So the journey was one where I had to learn some experiences in corporate America and nonprofit America. I also learned the hard way about taking leaps and risks that aren't calculated because my personality type is the one that'll jump, as my mentor Les Brown would say, and grow my wings on the way down. That's not always the most responsible thing to do because it will cause some undue stress when you just, throw caution to the wind and you just go out there and do. Sometimes pieces of that work out, but you're going to hit some bumps. And the best way is to plan for the bumps, plan and have contingencies that as you're growing your business, as you're growing your dream, that you might have to stay at a job for X amount of time for them to be your first investor before you go spreading your wings and doing all the great and wonderful things that you're here to do. And then there are other times where you might have been at that investor job for a while. It's time now to use and reorganize your resources so that you can step out on faith and do the thing that you've been called to do. So my journey was a combination of that and doing it, not knowing what the outcome was going to be, just knowing that there was something inside of me that I wanted to share, that I wanted to build. I just wasn't comfortable. And what I didn't do, John, if I had it to do all over again, was invest in mentorship relationships earlier on. I let hubris get in the way of thinking like, I'm pretty smart for your average bear. Like I can figure this out. I have some original ideas and concepts. Lean in, everybody. There's nothing new under the sun. I will repeat that. There is nothing new under the sun. You might have a different way of doing it. God might have blessed you with a special application of it, but there is nothing new under the sun. You have to be clear and intentional in your prayer closet. Everybody might not pray, but for me, that's my grounding. So that's the framework that I'll be sharing with you. Pray on the spirit of discernment so that you can write the vision and make it plain and understand how you apply your particular application of your gift in the world. Because you can bake a great sweet potato pie and the person 10 doors down might have their great-great-grandmother's recipe and they can bake a sweet potato pie. And guess what? Both of you can exist in the marketplace because there's an audience for each of you. Somebody won't like the amount of cinnamon that this person put in, and the other person will like the fact that they add nutmeg. And there will be people who will invest and purchase both pies. Your job is to find the amount of people in the marketplace that will purchase your pie.
For sure.
And that is something that mentorship and being able to invest in a coach and working alongside experts shortens your learning curve so that you can accelerate your opportunity to become cash flow positive. And that's really what it's about.
Yeah. So how did you, what did your business look like? Did you start what you're doing now when you started your entrepreneurial journey, or was your business totally different?
So it wasn't totally different, but I was operating as an entrepreneurial schizophrenic. That's what I was doing.
I mean,
So let
isn't
me
that the
explain.
definition of entrepreneur?
Clearly, but here's the reason why, John. I knew what my gift was, but I kept second guessing it. So when I started, I did this course called Workshop in Business Opportunity, WEBO for short. And it was a 16-week course that really helped you to identify how to build a business, how to look at vendors like lawyers and attorneys, how to price your product or your service, what your differential advantage is. It was really like an MBA in a box. And when I launched the business at that point, I knew I wanted to be a motivational speaker. But at that time, it really wasn't popular. Like now I feel like every corner you go on, like you'll see a motivational speaker, a church, and a liquor store. Like, you know, depending on what neighborhood you go in, it just seems like everybody's doing it. But back then, there weren't a lot of people. So I didn't, and definitely not a lot of Black women. So it was hard for me to find someone who looked like me doing what I wanted to do. So it made me not have the same level of confidence with pursuing it. So what ended up happening is I got my first client. I was so excited. I got paid to do this event. And then I'm like, well, how do I keep sustaining this? That's the challenge for entrepreneurs. We can do one thing well, you might get paid for it, but then how do you sustain continuing to get clients in the door, continuing to make sure people are buying your product, continue to make sure that people are purchasing your service? And that was one of the trainings or lessons that I didn't pay as close attention to. So what it caused me to do, John, was add another part to my business. What's the first thing we do? Something doesn't seem like it's bringing us money, and we're like, we got to eat. Like, you know, you eat what you kill. You ain't killing anything, there's a problem as an entrepreneur. So I added on event planning services because it was something that I could do with my eyes closed. It was one of the corporate jobs that I had. So I'm like, you know, I'm just going to do I add a whole nother piece with event planning. It was two separate things. Right. So you can only give one part of your growing business the same amount of attention at a time. And I thought that I could build these two industries simultaneously. So I did, but I didn't maximize my reach. Right. So I had a certain amount of success here, certain amount of success here. But if I had tunnel vision and really laser focused in one, it would have accelerated my growth a lot faster. For sure. So I had to learn my lesson. And then I also went from working and doing the business part-time to moving to, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to leave my last corporate job and I'm going to pursue this business full time. Yeah. Thank God for spouses that believe in dreams. Because my poor husband had, and I won't say poor husband, my dear husband, I was told by my auntie, don't call anybody poor. You don't put those words out there because words have power. Right. So my dear husband was very patient because he saw the talent, he saw the response in the market for the things that I was doing. But in those earlier days, I needed to focus more on getting the coaching and the mentorship and the support so that I could have really accelerated faster than I did. And as soon as I started doing that, things started moving because you don't know what you don't know until you realize you don't know. Right. So it's being with the right mentorship. You know, I talk about it in my book, Who Sits in Your Front Row? Not everybody has a seat in your front row. Some people need to be moved to the balcony. Right. What's the value? Right, John? What's the value of what they bring to your life? It doesn't have to be monetary. It can be just some sage wisdom and advice. Right. It could be some good feedback on a product or a service that you are offering. They could be your free market research. Yep. They could be the testimonials. Everybody should have a, what I call live and organic reason for being in your sphere of existence, not just occupying space, breathing oxygen. For what? Right. Life's too short. And as an entrepreneur, you think differently. You have to be 2 parts cray-cray to be an entrepreneur.
Yes, absolutely.
You're not the normal person. Right. Normal people, air quotes, are the people who are like, look, I'm good with using my skills and talent on a job, getting a regular paycheck, getting my benefits and my health care, and clocking in at 9, clocking out at 5, have my weekends off and my 2 weeks of vacation. Right. They're fine with it. And there's no judgment there. Entrepreneurship is not for everybody. Yeah. But entrepreneurs are the crazy thinkers, the ones who are bold enough to go out and create Airbnb. Who would have thought an Airbnb would be something that people would be paying to stay in somebody else's house. What?
Yeah.
The people who thought, oh, well, let's connect with friends and let's build a platform called Facebook. Who would have thunk it?
Right.
As the title of one of my mentors' books.
Mm-hmm.
So entrepreneurs are the game changers. We are the ones with the ideas and the innovation that impacts and influences the trends of today and tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that kind of risky thinking, that kind of innovation, it comes with a price. So for every entrepreneur listening to this podcast, just know there is a price to pay. There's no get rich quick scheme. There's no, you blink twice, you scratch your elbow and you lift up one leg and you have $1 million. Like, that's not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I had friends that would tell me that they were like, if I knew what I know now going in, I probably wouldn't have done it. And it's just like, you've got to either know what you're built for or be willing to put in the hard work to do those things, because this is not for the faint of heart, for sure.
Absolutely not. And you have to be consistent. One of the formulas that I train and teach on with those in my Faithpreneur tribe is very simple. Consistent action over an extended period of time equals maximum results. That's the winning formula.
Yeah.
So if you use my formula, just give me credit, but that's the formula. Consistent action over an extended period of time equals maximum results. That's really what it is. You can have talent, but if someone is outworking you, if someone is more consistent than you, if someone shows up again and again and again, they will outdo you in the marketplace just because of consistency.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I've had this conversation earlier today too, but like there's so many people out there, and I think that it becomes overwhelming for us when we look at people that are in our same industry or just other people out there doing something and constantly posting and constantly, and it's kind of like, oh, there they are again. And it can be overwhelming for us as observers to see that and think whatever it is that gets in our way. But, you know, it starts to feel like we can't do that. We can't show up because, well, they're doing it, but they're not watching what other people are doing. They're just showing up. And so it kind of, there's a little bit of a lesson there, I think, and something for me as well, because I have done the same thing is, oh, there's this person that's in my industry, you know, showing up, constantly working, constantly putting out content, constantly showing up for their business. And instead of just sitting there and consuming that and watching other people do it, you got to jump in and just stop paying attention to what other people are doing and start, you know, adding to the conversation.
And, you know, there is a girlfriend of mine, Dr. Cheryl Wood, who loves to say that visibility trumps ability. So if you keep putting it out there, people keep seeing it. Whether you're good or not, that will be sorted out later. And I pray you're good, because, you know, bad news travels faster than good news.
Right.
But you have to consistently put things out there so people begin to know, love, like, I don't just say know, like, and trust. I want my tribe to know, love, and trust me, to know that my heart is because I want to serve them. I'm not going to bring them just anybody or anything, that I'm very careful about who comes to my tribe and how you serve, because I know how it feels to be confused, John. I know how it feels as an entrepreneur trying to figure out, well, who do I spend money with? What do I invest in? What do I do? And people prey on you, Prey, but I Pray for the people that I work with to be able to be led and know that they're in a safe environment where they can make those expensive learning curves. They can get the wise counsel. They can create the plan so that they can get the results. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about, oh my gosh, Dr. Stacy C Grant is so awesome. Yeah, that's nice to hear, to feed my ego. That doesn't feed my heart. What feeds my heart is to know that you've had some conclusive results, that there's some action that you took as a result of working with me, as being a part of this community, that you have some traction under your belt. And it doesn't come overnight, but consistent action over an extended period of time equals maximum results.
Yeah. So you talked about, you know, all the entrepreneurs that you work with, and that obviously is a big part of what you're doing now. So can you kind of talk a little bit about what that looks like, you know, whether it's the conversations that you have with entrepreneurs, the struggles they have, but I'd love to just also hear about what you do with your virtual weekends, as you have presented so beautifully behind you. But
so Destiny Designers University is a virtual training and development platform for faithpreneurs. And I described earlier who faithpreneurs are. The difference between a faithpreneur and an entrepreneur is that we're operating with a fidelity to God. For us, we're unapologetic about our faith. We're not hiding it. We're not disguising it. We're not watering it down to make other people feel comfortable. We're standing in the fact that we know that God gave us a mission and assignment. And as we walk through that assignment, there's some things that we need to work on. There'll be some things that we need to face so that we can fix in order to be good stewards of what God has given us. And that you can talk about finance and faith in the same sentence. A lot of people shy away from that. And I've been there, done that. You know, you would think that if you serve God or you love God, it means you take a vow of poverty, like priests in the Catholic religion. I don't subscribe to that. Like, God wants us to have everything that he has given. But what he wants is our complete obedience. What he wants is our attention. If we seek him first, then all things shall be added. So faithpreneurs who hear my voice and who understand what we're building as a community understand that it's not about us, but what God does through us to give us the capacity for the resources, for the services, for the programs that can be the answer to a very troubled world, especially in these crazy times. Like I call it the COVID-19 nightmare. Between COVID-19 and the pandemic, racial unrest, social injustice, financial insecurity, all these things going on. You need faith now more than ever. And for those of us who believe in God, believe that we have to operate a certain way in integrity. That just because something looks shiny and new doesn't mean that it's right for you. And that in prayer, you can ask for the right spirit of discernment to align your gifts and your talents so that you're not just throwing them away and give them away. You don't want to cast your pearls among swine, so to speak. And I was of that kind of thinking. I just wanted to give away. I wanted to help so many people, John. I just wanted to help you. Like before you asked me, I was giving you a discount. Thank God I was delivered from that, because that's not business, right? And as my dear friend, Dr. Jolly would say, if you are in business, the primary purpose of business is to make a profit. And the truth of the matter is I found a lot of faithpreneurs were living in that same space of wanting to help and confusing ministry work with business. So ministry work is ministry work. You do what you do because that's your give back. That's your tie to your community, to your place of worship. But business means somebody needs to pay you, not tell you you did an awesome job, not give you a pat on the back, not offer you a glass of lemonade and 2 pieces of chicken. That's not how that works. A business means that there is some exchange of financial compensation for your goods or your services. So working with our faithpreneurs, what we do is prepare and provide trainings that are housed in Destiny Designers University. We just did a whole new overhaul. So we're putting up new content from our faculty. We refer to them as Destiny Designers University faculty members, and they'll be offering ongoing support and training at different levels. Most of our faithpreneurs are at that emerging stage. They're a developing entrepreneur that hasn't quite gotten to the spot where they're cash flow positive, where they're really seeing traction and they're not just paying bills and robbing Peter to pay Paul, Jane, and Sam, but they're in a position where their business is yielding that cash flow positive state. And then every year we have an annual gathering, and that annual gathering of faithpreneurs happens at our Faithpreneur weekend. And this is a tribute to my grandmother. My grandmother passed away December 15, 2015 at 98 years young, John. So it's a day I will never forget. It totally changed my life because my grandma is my everything. And it was difficult processing that she wasn't here. And I know I was being spoiled because so many people don't even get to meet their grandparents, much more have them for that long. So I realized the blessing in it, but I just still wanted my grandmother. And the very next year, I launched Action Despite the Distraction as a tribute to her on the eve of her birthday, August 16th, 2016. And it was just an overwhelming testament of what God will and can do when you trust him and you trust him all the way. And then December, the 2017 came and I said, well, what are we going to do? And I'm like, Grandma would have been 100 this year. So we had a virtual legacy dinner celebration. It really wasn't virtual. We recorded it, but we had a virtual 100th birthday in heaven for my grandmother. And then 2018 was coming, and I'm like, I want to find a way to solidify her legacy, because when we lose people we love, and in this year, so many people, there's nobody on this planet who hasn't been affected by loss. Yeah. And I feel that whoever God gives rest in this period, we have an opportunity to honor them by how we live. And I was able to honor my grandmother by, I honored her through the book launch, through the birthday celebration in heaven. But then I said, we're going to do a Faithpreneur weekend. And everybody looked at me like, say what now? You're not doing like a Faithpreneur day or, you know, just one thing. My husband was like, a whole weekend. I was like, a weekend. And I dream big. That's another hazard of being an entrepreneur, right? We don't dream small. We dream big. Yeah. And I said, we're going to do a Faithpreneur weekend. And you know why? I found out that my grandmother was an entrepreneur. I thought I knew everything about her. And I didn't know that she had started a business in Jamaica, West Indies, where we're from. And because she was suffering from, her name was Pearl. Miss Pearl, I'll buy it today, but can I pay you tomorrow or next week? She kept doing layaway, John. She kept giving away all of her products. So my grandfather shut it down. He was like, this is not a business. Like, we're going to be bankrupt in a minute. Right. But what if she had a Faithpreneur weekend where she could get the additional training and development? We kick off on Thursday evenings, always around her birthday, August 17th. Thursdays, that's our legacy gala. And that legacy gala is always a celebration of her and the legacy of faith that I stand on. And then I honor people who have been impactful in my life. Year 1, 2018, we did my mentors. So Les Brown, Dr. George Frazier, Dr. Emma Frazier Pendleton, Dr. Joel P. Martin, Vera Moore, Susan Taylor. I was able to honor the people who poured into me. And year 2, I said, well, now it's time for me to start honoring some of the amazing people that I happen to be very close friends with, but have done amazing things in business standing on their faith. So people like Lethea Owens that you know, and Dr. Pamela C.V. Jolly, Becky Davis, Sonia Jackson Miles, Dr. Randall Pinkett. So, you know, the list goes on. And this year we had to pivot because of COVID and have it virtually. But that Thursday gala is a special time and place where we're able to just celebrate the power of legacy and the power of having leaders and coaches and mentors in your life that can impact the direction that you go in. And then the Friday is an all-day conference. We call it our Faith in Action Conference. So we go into a deep dive on relationships, revenue, and resources, the things that we need to shorten those learning curves, to roll up our sleeves as entrepreneurs and put the right pieces of the puzzle in place and become cash flow positive. Now, it doesn't happen overnight, but you get the training to set it up. Everything from debt and how to create business credit to using home ownership as a wealth strategy, one of our new sponsors, of Wells Fargo, to resources, from automations to making your brand dynamic, how to be your own PR, to relationships on how to create an MWBE like I am, how to become an MWB, do business with the government, how to do business with Fortune 100. We have a bonus segment on how to date or be married to an entrepreneur, which is always the hot topic of the weekend, because that's a conversation. Not everybody can be in a relationship with an entrepreneur. And what that looks like. We have a Faithpreneur Millennial segment. We do a taping of one of my shows, Dream Do Done, our accountability podcast, for lunch. Then we did another live taping of the Vera Moore TV show that I'm a co-host of in the evening. And that's all on Friday. And then Saturday, we close out with our Faithpreneur VIP prayer call. So John, for the last decade, I've been doing a prayer call every Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I didn't know God was setting me up. I didn't even realize we had reached the point of being a decade, because it was at a conference with Dr. George C. Frazier, where I'm now the celebrity guest host. I started saying, let's just gather for prayer, because it's such an amazing event. So much information. I said, I see people walking around like they're in a daze. I said, let's just meet for prayer in the morning so that we can be intentional about who, what, when, where, and how we should leave this conference and the people who are here. And that started on site, and people were calling my phone like, are we having prayer? I'm like, prayer? The conference is over. But they were like, no, we got to still have prayer. So I said, you know what? I can commit to a Saturday. And God gave me the stamina to be able to keep that call going all this time. Sometimes, John, I was in the plane and I'm like kneeling, squinting on the side. They're like, ma'am, all cell phones off. I'm like, 1 second.
1 second.
I gotta go. And I'm on the street, pulling over on the side of the road to do the call. I'm on stages, getting ready to go up, and I'm whispering, that we're gonna finish the call. I gotta go on stage now. Love you guys. Bye. And all these years, that call has built and built and built. And I didn't realize, John, that was the true foundation of everything that God was giving me to do. I was building this part of business and I was doing that, and we were going to brand that, not knowing it was the mission that he was giving me for Faithpreneurs that was taking form throughout this whole decade that I did not see. Yeah. And the beauty is we get to celebrate that on that Saturday. We're doing the call live from the conference, and then we celebrate a special Faithpreneur award that I gave in honor of one of our Faithpreneurs who transitioned in 2019. And we honor a different person for the last 2 years that exemplifies and exhibits that level of faith, that trusting God no matter what happens. She had cancer, colon cancer. They didn't think she would survive. She was almost 4 years post the diagnosis. She wrote a book and did a release in the midst of it. She was ministering and helping others. And she said, whatever happens, I don't doubt my God for a second. If he carries me home, it's to my glory. If he takes me from this bed, it's to his glory. And either way, daddy does it, it's all right with me. And that's what she used to say. However daddy does it, it's fine. And that's the kind of story of resilience and testimony, especially for a faithpreneur, that we can't be afraid of what the outcome will be, because it's all in God's hands. And we have a wonderful fellowship. I do a keynote at the end. We have some other surprises. I started a Faithpreneur International Pearl Award, and that award is specifically for someone in corporate America who is a faithpreneur. The honorees on the Thursday night are entrepreneurs full-time. They build multi-million-dollar businesses. They're doing amazing things, but they run their company. But this award is for somebody who is in the corporate space, who's climbed the ladder, but they also have a business or another vertical that they are working on and successful at it. So year one, the first year I did it was last year, and we honored Dr. Cynthia Marshall, who is the CEO of the Dallas Mavericks NBA team. Wow. And this past year, Cecilia Nelson Hurt, who is the Senior Vice President of L'Oreal USA. So 2 different industries, but both strong women of God. And it was just such a pleasure to be able to highlight what they bring to the marketplace unapologetically in faith. So needless to say, after Faithpreneur Weekend is done, I need a vacation because we go hard.
Yeah, you put in the work. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about, it seems like I've heard this kind of reoccurring theme, and I think that I can relate to it, and I know other people that can relate to it, this idea of like, for people who are people of faith that are also in business, kind of figuring out what it looks like for them to actually be profitable, because there can be this sense of either I don't want to step on toes, or I don't want to seem greedy, or I don't want to seem like I'm after, that putting too much importance on money, even though I need money to live. And so like, I'd love to hear your kind of perspective on both those conversations that you've had with people that may struggle with that, or how they overcome that, or just kind of your perspective on that in general.
I love that question, John, and I'm so glad that you're raising it so that we can have this open dialogue, because one of the things that was a game changer for me was hearing someone say, it's a disservice to others if you're not offering your gifts and your talents.
Yeah.
Right? God didn't give you your gifts and your talents to hide it under the bushel. He gave it to you for you to multiply it.
Right.
So we're not honoring what he gave us if we're not using it.
Right.
So the conversation around faith and finance really boils down to understanding, do you honor and trust what you've been given? God said your gifts will make room for you. So if your gifts will make room for you, that means that you need to offer those gifts. And people will compensate you for it in the marketplace. And then that's how you grow. You're not doing it for greed or selfish gain. You're doing it because that is the mechanism that God has given us to be able to provide for ourselves and a family. Why would he say a wise man would leave an inheritance for his children's children. How are you going to leave an inheritance for your children's children if you broke?
Right.
Where they do that at?
Right.
So you have to really understand that selling is your service. Because whatever you're selling, as long as you're selling it with an integrity to God, and you're selling something that's quality, and you're delivering on your product, and you're operating the way that gives God the glory,
right,
then there's nothing wrong with it. It's when we think it's all about us, it's all about our ego, and we want to just get for our own selfish reasons, then you start getting yourself into troubled waters, right? Because it's the love of money that's the root of all evil, not money itself. People with the heart of service for God, the love for God, they're going to do more. If you get more, you give more. So when you look at those who are philanthropic in the world, who are unapologetic about their faith and their belief in God, you usually find that those are the people that are very generous in their funding of scholarships and their funding of outreach and doing more work. I know as God expands my territory, I will continue to give, because I was giving before I had. You know, my mother used to complain about sending me out to the ice cream truck with $2 because she never got change. I was buying for everybody, right? That's just who I was as a kid. It's who I've always been. If I have, then you have. If I have $2 and I need to split it in half, then I split it in half.
Today's sponsor is brought to you by Livewell Apparel. Livewell Apparel is a t-shirt company, but it's not just a t-shirt company. I mean, how many times have you bought a t-shirt and that you've loved, but it's actually not doing anything other than just being an extra t-shirt in your closet? How many of you have bought something to support a cause or support an organization, and you bought something, but it may be something that you never wear or never really cared about? Livewell Apparel is changing that. So how it's doing that is that it is designing t-shirts that you actually want to wear. This material is soft, it's got tri-blend material, it's comfortable, and it's just an amazing t-shirt, and something that, like I said, you want to wear and want to pair with other things in your closet. And not only that, but it's a company that gives back. So this company right now is donating the proceeds to No Kid Hungry. No Kid Hungry is an organization that helps kids that may not have access to food for at home. So when they go to school, that they have a meal that's provided for them. Right now in this pandemic, though, kids don't have that opportunity. They're not at school where school lunches are provided. So No Kid Hungry is making sure that these kids that normally have food provided for them still have a meal. So go check out Livewell Apparel by going to lwapparel.com. So I'd love for you, I mean, what's your perspective on that kind of, that hang up where people just don't know, like, because I know that for me, especially in the beginning, you kind of want to take any opportunity that kind of comes to you. And a lot of, I don't want to say people take advantage of that, but there is that sense of like, well, it's good exposure, or it's, you know, you'll get to meet people, and it just seems like that continues, that this idea of, well, it could be an opportunity, which I'd love to hear your perspective, but mine is there's nothing wrong with a good opportunity, and it's good, I think, to decide which one of those are a good opportunity and which ones are just someone maybe taking advantage of your gift to receive a service. But I'd love to hear kind of your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. That is a great question, because if it feels like you're being used, you're probably being used.
Right.
If it feels like it's a reciprocal situation where someone legitimately may not have the resources up front to pay, something that sounds better to me is, are you willing to partner with me on this event so that we can get revenue, and here would be your revenue share off the profits? I wouldn't necessarily be able to give you your normal retainer, but that's somebody that's saying that they understand and appreciate that there's some value that you're bringing. So that's one scenario. Two, yes, there'll be exposure, but exposure doesn't pay bills. Okay. So if there is exposure, am I getting a list of everybody that's there so that I can market to them directly? So there's some sort of reciprocal relationship that you build in those instances where the monetary value of what you're doing might not be received in cash, but is received in relationship building. I tell people all the time, my relationship capital, I'm a billionaire, but I take time to invest in those relationships and just be upfront with people. So whether you're on the receiving end or the giving end, if you're a budding entrepreneur and you don't have the name recognition and you don't have the contacts and you don't have the access that you would like to have, but there's an influencer that you want to work with that could potentially open up doors for that opportunity. You don't just show up to say, oh, well, you know, can you give me your list?
Right.
Can you show up and say, look, I'm new in the industry. I have a certain skill set. I see you have an event coming up. Can I take care of your VIPs? Or for 2-3 hours of work, I will give you XYZ if you give me promotional access, or maybe you do an interview, or you share my information with your audience. You negotiate. What would be a win for you? How could my showing up be an added value to what you're already doing? That's a different conversation than just trying to show up and take without giving.
Right. So it sounds like on either end, no matter if you're asking for someone's service or if you're offering, make sure that whichever end you're on, that there's an equal exchange of a give and receive.
Yeah, it has to be a give and receive. And of course, it might not always add up exact, sure. But if you're building a relationship, then there's an investment in growing that conversation and what can that look like? Because sometimes you have to just go through it to figure out what could have worked better, right, or what you could have added differently or done differently. But both people are invested in growing that relationship and creating an opportunity for future revenue, and what that looks like. So it's important to measure what you say yes to, and just don't show up for things that there's no return on your investment at all.
Right.
You know, there's some that there'll be a smaller return or it won't be a large monetary return, but there's some sort of return. If there's no return, then that's a lopsided relationship, and that's a win-lose. You're always looking to create win-wins.
Right. So tell me a little bit, I know you talked about your book. Can you tell us a little bit about what all of that is about?
Sure. And actually, absolutely. And I can actually do one better, which is offer your audience the first chapter for free. I like to window shop, and I also like to sample things. So I said, hey, let people sample, and you can take a taste of it. If you love it, you can go ahead and get the book, but you get totally for free the first chapter, which is Faith is an Action Word. And you can go to www.actionaction.com. No, it's not a mistake. actionbook.com. The book is Action Despite the Distraction. People are like, is it just action despite the distraction? I said, no, you have to repeat it twice so that you understand how to keep going when those distractions hit. But if you go to actionbook.com, you can download the first chapter totally for free. So the book really goes through it goes through 7 life lessons, but it also goes through the distractions that come with them. So it's a self-help book. It's not a shelf book, because some people buy books and they just collect them and they put them on the shelf. No, this is, you have to crack it open. I make it very user-friendly. And there's actions that I ask you to take. There are exercises that I ask you to do. And it's not overwhelming, because most people don't read as much because they think it's work. Yeah. They think, oh my gosh, if I read this book, and if it's too thick, most people will go right past the book. Tell the truth, Shane Adele. They're like, oh no, this is going to take me 10 years. So it was intentional to make it something that was easy to navigate. It was user-friendly, but it also required an action. So at the end of each chapter, there's some work for you to do, some reflection, for you to record and take down notes, and then to be able to set up for the next stage of the journey. So the responses and the testimonials that I get, some of the exercises that I've prepared in there have been life-changing for my entrepreneurs. They're like, wait a minute, I never even thought of that. Oh my goodness, this just changing one habit. has made me so much more productive. So these life lessons are life lessons that I'm not just pontificating about. It's what I lived. It's what I know. And I know that it helped me, and I know that it's helped so many others that I work with. And I put it all together with God's inspiration. And you can read to the last chapter 8, where I tell the story of how this book got into the world. But it is really a testament of how we can thrive and live our destiny now, not next week, 10 years from now, but right now. And everything that we see in this world is repeating itself over and over. Nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
So even though we're going through trauma and tragedy, this too shall pass. And those who get the witty downloads and divine ideas will be the ones with the answers to be able to heal this world and this land and be the innovators that bring about change and resources for this world on a daily basis. So that's where I get joy from, knowing that that's the foundation of our teaching, and we've expanded it, and we have some other products that we're releasing in this 2020. But it's all around helping our faithpreneurs to stay grounded in their faith, to stay moving in action, and to be accountability with benchmarks that you can measure your success, because inspiration fades away. Destiny Designer's tagline is our classroom without borders, where we graduate to the next best version of who we are by turning inspiration into results.
Yeah, and I think that benchmark word is so important for a lot of people out there, because like you said, the inspiration will last long enough to maybe get excited about it, but then when you actually want to make it happen, that's where it kind of falls away.
Absolutely. And we don't have time. Is too short. Life is too short. We're seeing that now play out every single day. So what are we waiting for? Absolutely. You know, there's no reason to get paralyzed by the pursuit of perfection. Always operate at excellence. Always put your best foot forward. Always come with your A game, but don't get paralyzed by perfection, because while you're paralyzed by perfection, somebody else is off executing.
Absolutely.
So if you follow my life lesson 2, it's not about being perfect. It's about getting started so you have something to perfect.
For sure. Well, tell us a little bit, what's, you know, the business look like going forward? Do you have anything kind of in the works in the future that you're looking towards?
Well, right now we are gearing up for our 4th quarter focus for Destiny Designers University, because the championing of a new year doesn't start in January. It starts in the 4th quarter of the previous year. So we're rolling up our sleeves on the tail end of our 2020 virtual Faithpreneur weekend. And we're going to be doing and adding in some new courses to Destiny Designers University. So definitely stay tuned there for us to support you on the journey, anyone who identifies as a faithpreneur. We have launched a whole suite of shows, Destiny Designers TV, that air weekly. So that's exciting. And we're going to put some more additions to the look and feel of the network, because that's what it's turned into during this COVID-19. So I'm excited about that. And the Faithpreneur VIP prayer call that I mentioned, we this year started publishing the recordings, because we have years and years of recordings. So at this point, we only did, I think the last 2 years are up, and then the current ones continue to go up each and every week. So that's pretty exciting. And it allows for an opportunity for people just to get a little glimpse into our family and into our community that is totally open to all faithpreneurs who believe God is real, His word is true, and it'll never return unto Him void.
Nice. Love that. Well, where can people find you that they, want to go find you online, your website, social media?
Sure. Well, the best way to find me is at destinydesignersuniversity.com. That's DESTINY designers, DESIGNERS university.com. destinydesignersuniversity.com. On that page, you'll see a couple of the courses. All of them are not up. That's happening in the next couple of weeks. But what you'll also be able to do is click through to find out more about Faithpreneur Weekend. You can click through to get your copy of the book. You can click through to find out about the Faithpreneur VIP prayer call and some of the other things that are going on. So we're doing all sorts of web reorganization with the multiple verticals that we have. But for Destiny Designers University, that's the best place. You can also email us from there. And of course, social media, you can follow us at Destiny Design U, DESTINY, DESIGN, and the letter U on all social media, or you can follow me personally at Dr. Stacy C Grant on Facebook, and then Stacy C Grant on Instagram, Twitter, Periscope, YouTube, all of it. Yeah, find me everywhere.
Find you everywhere. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on and talking about what you do, and hopefully some of the people out there can have some takeaways and follow along on what you're doing and join your team there.
Well, John, I am excited to have had this conversation with you. It was such a pleasure meeting you. The time definitely flies. I mean, yes. It seems like a lifetime that I've known you in the short space because of your warm heart, sweet, gentle spirit, your amazing talent. Like, to be photographed by John Harder is just to be photographed. So I am excited about what you're providing in this podcast. Because it's content rich. It's a variety of different kinds of individuals that come on with expertise that can share with your audience. So I just want to wish you bountiful blessings on the work that you're doing. And thank you for being courageous enough to start this podcast so that others could tune in and be able to glean some value. And who knows, John, you might have inspired somebody else to go out there and start their own.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. All right. Well, Stacy, have a good day.
Thank you. I plan to make it. This is my milestone birthday year, so I'm turning up.
Okay. All right.